Hey guys, it's Grant. I'm in Tulsa drinking some crappy coffee in a Marriott, and I wanted to make sure to get this video to you guys this evening. So basically what I did is I spent some time this week chipping away at some of those items we talked about in the meeting, and put together what I'm calling a statement of distributable net income. That's this over here. And this is essentially a cash flow statement for an LLC. But the cool thing about it is it's formula driven and it's dynamic. So I'll show you in a minute how that works. But basically I built this thing because I think it will be useful for forecasting as well as targeting specific efficiency opportunities. So let me kind of show you how it works. So basically all the numbers you see here on the statement itself, as well as these cost assumptions, are all being populated based upon the numbers here in the variables control panel. So everything you see in terms of the numbers calculations here and over here have to do with these numbers. So if you want to make a change to revenue, as you can see, revenue is pulling from the control panel. So that's how it works. Hopefully that you guys can use that to your advantage. I'll show you in a minute where I want you guys to do that if you don't mind. But the only thing on this statement that is not formula driven are these three SG&A expenses. So feel free, to plug and play with insurance and auto leases and equipment. Everything else should be pulling from the control panel. So real quick, I want to walk through maybe the most important thing about this spreadsheet is the assumptions, because you got to understand what I'm assuming here for the numbers to make sense. So I will walk through line by line real quick, and I will point out my conservative assumptions as well as what I'd call my wild ass guesses. So let's start with cost assumptions with labor. So first and foremost, I am assuming that we are servicing 80 pools at this point, which will require, in my opinion, 2 full-time techs at maximum capacity, full capacity, 2 techs for 80 pools. So first of all, we got 8 pools per day per tech at $12 a pool. So I'm just assuming on average a full-time tech can service 8 pools a day, so 1 an hour, and that we would have to pay this person $12 per pool. This seems to be an industry standard according to Kyle, and I think $12 is what Blue Science is paying to their basic techs. So then we assume 8 pools a day. It turns into 40 pools a week per tech. Here's our weekly cost for 1 tech. And now I've annualized it, and this is our total annual labor cost for 1 tech, $25,000. Here's one of my conservative estimates. I added a 15% premium to the $24,960 because there's a lot of things like tax items and insurance, and I just wanted to factor that in just in case. We'll see how that works. So that brings it to $28,704 per tech. And then because I'm assuming 80 pool routes, we'll need 2 full-time techs, and so here I've doubled the $28,000. So I'm assuming, for the sake of this example, it will cost us $57,408 for 2 techs to service 80 pools. This is an annualized number. So let's move down to chemicals. This is a little trickier, but I've provided some source data here, which should help make sense of what I've been doing. But basically, for a bag of 143-inch chlorine tablets, 50-pound bag, it's $100. Broke that into a weekly cost for all 80 pools, $142.86 a week, just for chemicals, and I'm assuming on average a 13,000 gallon pool, just for reference purposes. That brings out a monthly cost of chemicals, $571, and here's your total annual chemical costs for 80 pools. So now you can see where the margins come from. It's pretty low, right? So that's pretty good. So you can see, a lot of my assumptions here, and the conservative ones, like honestly, 8 pools a day for a tech is very conservative. Kyle thinks they should be able to do 12 to 14 if the logistics are right. And then also, these 3 SG&As are wild ass guesses. So insurance, I'm guessing, auto lease for 2 pickup trucks that are leased, including maintenance, $12,000. That may be a little high, but I decided to go that high. So. And then there's his equipment, which $1,500, again, totally a guess, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. One more kind of current assumption So, oh, I already mentioned the number of techs, 2 full-time for 80 pool routes, are at maximum capacity. Okay, so what that means is if you want to toy with this variable over here, let's say you want to go beyond 80 pools. Say you want to say, I wonder what our cash flow would look like with 100 pools. Well, you can type in 100 right there, but you've just got to remember that, in my opinion, once we cross the 80 pool threshold, we have to start adding more techs, which changes this number. Okay, so fine and dandy to add more pools here, but you might want to make some adjustments to the number of techs. Makes sense, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this. Given 80 pools at $160 per month, here's our revenue. Labor costs, chemical costs, these are being pulled over here. They're color-coded. That spits out a gross margin, 58% margin so far, pretty good. And here's our SG&A. We got marketing. Based on our mail-out so far, I'm looking at a $250 acquisition cost per pool route. So if we wanted to get 80 pools, I'm guessing we'd spend $250 times 80, gives us $20,000. CRM, that's our $325 a month Infusionsoft, and then the rest of the SG&A. At the end of the day, our cash flow before distributions to the owners, okay, before distributions to the owners, $41,935. This is a 27% profit margin. And again, this is before taxes, because if it's an LLC, it'll be passed through and taxed at our individual rates. So based on these assumptions, if we did not take a distribution as owners, which would be a worst case scenario, we could afford to pay a manager approximately $42,000. That's all this means. And again, worst case scenario. Okay, I also, real quick, I don't want to keep you too long. Efficiency opportunities. So quickly, let me show you how this would work. Okay, assuming all things equal, the easiest and fastest way to increase cash flow is to increase the price of our service per pool. I know that's sort of like duh, that's how it is for most industries, but let me just show you what happens. So here we got $41,935. Watch what happens when I change the price, the revenue we charge per pool. Let's say I go from 160 to 180, which I think is totally doable in the woodlands. Okay, we get about a $20,000 increase in our DNI. And that's amazing. That's assuming all of the assumptions are static in that case, just increasing the price, which is fairly easy to do given the market positioning we have, I think. Also want to point out, just by changing the price, what we did here was we increased the price by 12.5%, and that resulted in an increase in our margins by 21.5% because all the fixed costs were the same. We didn't add any more pools, so the labor and chemical costs were the same. All we did was just increase prices. So hopefully this spreadsheet helps us kind of plug and play and see, okay, how can we get this number up? Or what would it look like if we could get our tech pool realization from 8 pools to 10 pools? Hopefully that'll help us kind of plug and play and see what we can do. Let's see. Okay, last thing. Let me save that, make sure it's saved. I've got a valuation summary. Here's what I did here. Let me just walk through it. So based on the assumptions of 80 pools, yada, 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 again, these are formula driven, so these will all change if you change the variables control panel. So same story here, but given the 80 pools and all the assumptions, our investment is $47,400. That's our total SG&A spend. That gives us an ROI of $108,535, which is our total gross margin. You can see over here. So we're basically investing $47,000, and we get to make $108,000. On a percentage basis, that's 129% return on investment in the first year, assuming we don't sell the business and we hang on to it. So that gives us a payback period of 5.5 months. Let's see here. Make sure this is all fleshed out. Okay, good. Now, if we were to sell the business, which I know we don't want to do at this point, I broke that down as well. So if we wanted to sell the business based on an unsophisticated buyer, which would be like a brokerage listing, our estimated resale value would be $207,000 based on a 1.2 times annual revenue. So that's our multiple. We've seen that over and over. So we'd have an ROI percentage of 337%. Pretty good. Now, if we wanted to sell to a sophisticated buyer, which is like a national conglomerate, I think we get a much smaller resale value because they're probably going to base it on cash flow, annual cash flow, and because our customers won't be contractually obligated to keep paying us and stay with us, you really can't project that too far. So in that case, still a very good ROI, but I gave us a lower valuation. And so this is just something for your eyeballs. You know, we're investing $47,000 to go get 80 pools, and we end up in year one with this is our gross margin. So that's pretty darn good. And then finally, these two tabs. David, this is yours. Marshall, this is yours. Basically, I gave you guys your own individual spreadsheets to plug and play so that we could kind of keep this one, the final one, as is. And I also saved a static copy. So this is a values only copy, excuse me. So that's pretty much it. I'm working on one last thing, our KPIs, our key performance indicators. Still a work in progress, but just want to put some stuff together. So I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on all this. Sorry it took a little while. If you think some of my assumptions are totally off base, you might be right, and please bring them to my attention. We can get a better number. But let's be thinking long and hard about management positions, and maybe one of us would be willing to manage for, I don't know, maybe part-time, 20 hours a week for $41,000 a year. Let's just think about it. So hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you soon. Thanks. See ya.